there we go.
Yes.
Perfect.
Hmm.
Now record as well.
I'll do it.
So Swamiji, so we're just having some conversations on the intersection between Hindu spirituality and psychotherapy, and I know, and listeners might not even know what Vedanta is. I wonder if you can just give a brief introduction to what is it, Advaita Vedanta.
Yeah. Vedanam antah Vedantah. That which occurs as at the end of the Vedas. Veda generally is just one thing. It's not like when you refer to a book, you don't say a book and its last chapter. You don't mention it separately.
Yeah.
The idea itself is funny. But
Yeah.
here, there is a reason to mention it separately because
Mm,
the Veda is distinctly divided into two portions. The
mm,
bulkiest of the first portion has to do with wish fulfillment,
mm,
all
mm,
about how to be ethical, how to grow in maturity, how to be ethical, how to do everything following what we call dharma, a kind of a universal matrix of norms, and
yeah.
then how to live a fulfilled life and how to connect to the truth of the universe, God, Ishvara, whatever you want to call it. And so
Mm,
this is the first portion of the Veda. And then while living in this, within the rubric of the first portion of the Veda, oftentimes there is a stirring for more. There is one is wondering, is this all life is about? Going to work, coming back, raising a family, and and then getting weaker, and then
mm,
next life. Is this all life is about? For
right.
people who are ready to ask this question, then the second portion of the Veda, becomes a possibility, because they are no longer wanting the run of the mill, kind of a thing. They don't want. So therefore, the second portion of the Veda talks about the truth of oneself as a non-desiring person. The first
Mm,
portion of the Veda basically reiterates the desires and does not question your understanding, or rather misunderstanding, of oneself as a desiring, wanting being. Second portion of the Veda, questions that. The first portion of the Veda allows you to fulfill the wants within certain ethical dimensions, and the
mm,
second portion of the Veda says, well, are you really a wanting person? Because
mm,
looks like what you want is to lose the wants. And so Vedanta is the knowledge whereby you discover yourself as that being who is free of all afflictions, sorrow, fear, strife, frustrations, in short, samsara.
mm. So the first portion of the Veda is trying to fulfill these wants
Yeah,
and trying to give it. But the second
yes,
part of the Veda is the Vedanta questions that itself,
yes,
that we are wanting person.
yes, yes.
Okay.
It knocks off the notion that one is a desiring person, that one
Mm,
is a wanting person, one is an unfulfilled person. The first portion of the Veda just, helps you cross what is called the ocean of samsara, and
mm,
helps you to be within the ethical, ways as you are fulfilling the desires. The second portion of the Veda is very radical. It is called Vedanta. It is extremely radical because it makes the ocean itself disappear into an ocean. So what
mm.
you considered the ocean of desire, ocean of samsara, is actually a notion of samsara.
Okay. Yeah. Mm. And so you mentioned this transition from someone who might be interested in living an ethical life and fulfilling desires to wanting to know more about the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, could you maybe just tell me a little bit more about like about what do you feel like leads to that transition within one person to then seek out the truth?
Usually lots of disappointments.
Mm.
Because of,
Yeah.
because it's not easy to fulfill one desire, let go, let alone the litany of desires that one has. It's
Yeah.
not easy to fulfill even one desires because you can only control, one can only control, as you know, the hidden variable, the known variables. Like you can say, okay, I have a job interview. It is at 9 a.m. And so I keep the alarm clock. I wake up early. I prepare.
Mm-hmm.
I Google all the people that who are going to interview me, and I know much. I know about the company. I can control all this. What I
Mm-hmm.
cannot control are the hidden variables. The car doesn't start, or or somebody else has already gone earlier. They have already an insider there. They are just advertised the job for the sake of it, and so the insider they have already liked. So your interview is just for the sake of fulfilling the government regulations. So many reasons could be there. So this is what is called prarabdha, difficult obstacles in the way of oneself gaining something. So, this kind of disappointments happen at every corner. There is a
Mm-hmm.
disappointment waiting to
Mm-hmm.
say boo. And then each time
Yeah.
even when it's not Halloween. And so each time when you go and get disappointed, then the futility of working so hard and putting so much effort
Mm.
to gain something that doesn't seem to be in your hands dawns on there is an inner dawning of the futility of a very important a very important point, the so-called connection between action and the results of action. So the
Mm.
results of action come, but they don't seem to have anything to do with the actions at all. And as the
Mm-hmm.
Bhagavad Gita says, the actions are in your hands, but not the results. And so, when one discovers that, the futility of the action becomes very clear, and then one starts to think, is this all that I am? Why do I yearn to be whole when it may not be a possibility? So, if I'm yearning to be whole, there must be a possibility. If I'm already what I seek, I need to discover that. And that is how one progresses slowly. The root is disappointment, disenchantment, disillusionment, and some friend leaves you, and then some things you wanted don't work out. Or if you're spiritually oriented, you go and choose the wrong guru, and wrong guru
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
a guru that has taken a vow of silence. This is,
Right.
they may be very what should I say, enlightened, but
Yeah.
they refuse to teach. So what are you going to do? I mean, it's wonderful to sit with them and serve them and be with them, but if they
Mm-hmm.
don't open their mouth, and if the knowledge is something that is conveyed in the form of words of Vedanta, then one is in a little bit of a pickle, because the heart is given away to this guru, and then one is wondering what to do. So these are the
Mm.
ways in which the hidden variables come and pounce. So therefore, over time, with proper discrimination, one learns
Mhm.
that my actions are not giving the desired results. Perhaps the answer is somewhere else. And therefore,
Mhm.
one is waiting at the airport, and usually there are shops, paperback Vedanta,
Yeah,
at
yeah.
you know, autobiography of a yogi, and
Uh-huh.
things like
Uh-huh.
that, which are easy to read and which are so inspiring. And Vivekananda, Swami Vivekananda, all these things.
Mm.
And so, with that, one gains some kind of what is in Sanskrit called apata jnanam, a kind of
Mm.
sudden and a kind of a smattering of this knowledge, which really opens the heart to the possibility that perhaps I was wrong all this time. Perhaps the answer is not outside. Perhaps it is centered on this I that I
Mm.
have to know.
So this disenchantment really
Yeah,
kicks off this questioning
absolutely.
of
Disappointment, not
Mhm.
getting your way, disenchantment is very, very useful. In fact,
Mhm.
those are your first teachers.
Yeah, very interesting. Hmm. Well, what's coming up for me so many is that in the States, if someone were to feel disenchanted and questioning their pursuit, they often might end up in a therapist's office instead of in a spiritual pursuit. um, I guess I'm wondering, is there a role in seeking psychotherapy or in this pursuit at all?
Definitely, definitely there is a role. Because if you're talking about non-duality, the duality starts right here
Mm,
in the heart, in the mind, in what in we call antahkarana, the inner instrument. That is where the duality starts. That's where the conflict is between the doer
mhm,
and the knower, between the one who wants to do certain things and the one who knows better, between the one who wants to do the right thing and the other one who thrives
mm,
on doing the wrong thing. And so there are many, many conflicts. So the battle of Kurukshetra, described in the Bhagavad Gita, is right here, right now, in raging in one's heart. That is why the message of the Bhagavad Gita is extremely timeless. And if we notice the Bhagavad Gita, first Arjuna has a counseling session from the Lord. Only then the teaching begins. Only then the teaching works. Because first he is in a state of panic. He
mhm,
described he has the first panic attack in history. First documented
mhm.
Gandivam samsrate hastat. The Gandiva, the bow. I mean, he's such a warrior. He's a
Right.
stalwart. He's an exalted warrior. Here he finds his hands are perspiring, and the bow called Gandiva, his personal bow, is slipping from his hand. And then he suddenly feels feverish. Tvakcha paridahyate, he says. And then he says, I can't restrain my mind. Na shaknomi avasthatum. Why? Brahmati iva me manaha. My mind is roaming all over the place. And then I have become suddenly very superstitious. I see bad omens every day, everywhere. Here a crow, there a black cat, and so many things I'm seeing. And I'm not able to do
Mm,
this. And then I feel dejected. He says this. I feel
right.
disenchanted. I don't see any good coming out of this war. And
Mm.
so the first chapter is talk therapy. Okay. And so Arjuna has talk therapy for the first chapter because Lord Krishna is a wonderful listener. He just sits and listens. He doesn't butt in. He doesn't say, "Oh, how can you think like this? You're a warrior." Nothing. Or don't
Mhm,
feel so sad. There is a way. Nothing at all. He just sits and listens. And then
mm,
the therapy takes on a slightly different tack at the beginning of the next chapter. Because at some point, talk therapy has to, after this talk therapy, after certain catharsis has been achieved, some work has to be done, some inner
yeah.
work has to be done. And so here in the beginning of the second chapter, we see Arjuna getting a pep talk.
Mm,
Arjuna is pulled up and asked to stop behaving like a victim. Take the reins of his life in his hands. Understand the fact that he's a warrior and accept the situation right now that they are in the middle of a war and he cannot defect. And his defection is not because of of some illusion that he is a pacifist. He is not a pacifist. He was in
mhm,
fact
mhm.
extremely bloodthirsty for all the 12 years that they lived in the forest. So now he suddenly didn't become a pacifist, but he started to look for a way out because, as you know, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And here, Lord Krishna makes him sit and look at his situation by talking philosophy. And first, he peps him up and asks him to throw away the victimhood, and then only
Mm,
the teaching starts. So yes, that itself is a very big clue that one has to do some inner work, either with a therapist or by oneself, doesn't matter how. So Vedanta is not opposed to therapy at all.
mm,
Even in the Upanishad, In the Keno Upanishad, there is a student who says, please teach me the Upanishad after the Upanishad has been entirely taught. And then the teacher gives him some visualizations and some kind of therapeutic tools to then engage back to the teaching. Because the teaching is for, the teaching has some prerequisites. Just like every knowledge has some prerequisites, you can't suddenly join a medical college without knowledge of anatomy. Anatomy and physiology, basic, one has to have certain credits. And so here also, you can't just suddenly go for understanding I'm the only thing in the whole world and I'm non-separate from God.
Yeah,
Even though
yeah.
it might feel odd, I'm non-separate from God. You can't suddenly go there without
Mm,
really reckoning the pains and sorrows that are there right now. So therapy comes in many forms. And in the olden days in India, we did not need it because there was still a strong kinship network. And so the child who was scolded by the mother immediately would go and sit on the grandmother's lap.
yeah,
Immediately,
yeah.
right there. Okay. And then the grandmother means the husband's mother. Okay. Yeah. Not
Right.
her mother. And
Yeah.
the child would complain that, oh, mommy did this, mom did this. And then the grandmother would say, even before you were born, she was like this. And there is no hope for her to change. This was instant therapy because the
Yeah,
child may
yeah.
not understand all the family feuds and all, but the child understood, okay, grandma is on my side. It needs validation. So it
Yeah.
got that instant validation. And now the all the elders are in senior homes, and the children are in daycare, and all the labs have
Mhm,
laptops
mhm.
on them.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Hmm. So that security as a child is
Yeah,
not
and
there.
yeah, insecurity. For that insecurity, there is no instant therapy. Mother, grandmother, grandfather, uncles, aunts, cousins. This is all a very healthy way to grow up for the child. And nowadays, it's not there. Everybody is in
Right.
a nuclear family, and I don't know what is new about it, and nor am I clear about it. What this is. So therefore, therapy becomes important because there's no
Yeah.
other that the organic mechanisms through which one understood this are gone,
Mm. The mechanisms by which we get
by which the child would be
validation.
validated. Yes. And
Right.
the other things, you see, we are a very musical culture, and so the child would be asked to chant the shlokas and taught the shlokas and sing and
Mhm.
everything. That itself is a form of therapy. Now that is not there so much, unless one goes to bal vihar or some kind of Sunday
Yeah,
school,
yeah.
things like that. It is
Right.
not there. That is not
Mm.
there. Another way of overcoming this was putting these elaborate designs in front of the house called rangoli with
Mm.
rice flour
Mm.
and colors, and that can take hours, especially on festival days. That itself is kind of a meditation, and the family would do it together. The mother, daughter, and children and all would do it together. That was a form of therapy. Yoga is a form of therapy. Anything that gives certain validation and self-love is a form of therapy.
Mhm, mhm. And so, Somaji, when you said, it seemed like implied in what you said is that therapy can help with gaining the qualifications needed
Yes,
to enter into Vedanta.
yes.
Could you please just elaborate a little bit on that connection?
The person going into therapy feels alone, lonely.
Mhm.
The person seeking a therapist feels like there is no hope, hopeless, rejected, disenchanted, and alone. So the therapist starts by validating the feelings. Yes, you
Yeah.
are not wrong to feel this way. Yes, you are correct. Yes, and then of course it's the childhood and everything. So, and then what the therapy does is that it makes you understand that you are not alone with your feelings, and that itself is
Mhm.
wonderful. Because before one goes to therapy, one feels like I have these terrible feelings of which I'm very ashamed. So one already
Yeah.
feels bad. And then on top of that, one feels bad for feeling bad. And this is just awful. And so
Yeah.
going into therapy, the therapist looks at the patterns in the life. And so what are the patterns in the life? Very interesting, because the therapist will say, given this kind of a background and
Mm.
given this kind of a childhood and this kind of primary caregivers who are actually primary scaregivers, in your life, it's not at all surprising you are behaving like this.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
at all surprising you feel this way. Imagine the relief hearing this, because
Mm.
now we are on the realm of God. We are not at all on the realm of the individual grieving human mind. We are looking at a pattern. And for us, every pattern, every universal law is the manifestation of the Lord and the Goddess, just like the manifestation of the psychological order. This is God. For us, this is a manifestation of God. It is just so beautiful that given this kind of an abuse, this is what will be adult issues. Given this kind of a problem, this is how you might grow up. Given this kind of a background, you will have some kind of dissociative disorder.
Yeah.
Then it's no longer you.
Right.
It's a pattern in which I seem to have fallen. So this is good to know. I am part of
Mm.
this pattern. One can be objective about it, just like one's blood group. If somebody says your blood group is O negative, there's nothing to feel negative about it. It just happens to be O negative, and then you just
Right.
say, "Oh Lord, don't put me in an accident because it is a rare group, and very few people have it." So this is how it is. So there is a pattern. There are patterns. So just like there are patterns of the weather, there are patterns of how water behaves, there are patterns of how clouds behave, there are patterns of how trees behave, how animals behave. Similarly, there is a pattern that governs the workings of the human mind. And it is an order that is so vast that even disorder is part of the order. So nothing is outside this order. Narcissistic personality disorder, check. Bipolar disorder, check. And then the other one, what is that? BPD, the check.
Yeah.
Everything. Yeah, everything is within this
Mm.
order. The order is so vast. The order is not, it transcends what we think is order and disorder. That very bifurcation, it transcends.
Mm.
So when you look at it from that transcendental point of view, you are looking not at one mind. You're looking at just the order that is there in which this mind is shining.
Mhm.
And so to tell that to
Mhm.
a person, when the therapist tells that to the person, there's already a great relief, and one can learn to objectively look at the mind.
Mm. It seems like there's also in understanding that order, there's an acceptance that you feel
Absolutely.
accepted.
Absolutely. And even if that acceptance is not immediate, one can work towards it. Yeah, you're very
Right.
right. There could be a certain, a journey towards the acceptance has begun, because
Mm.
this is how it is. That's why it's called an order, a law. That's why it can
Mhm.
be studied,
Mhm.
because a law is predictable, and a law is present and it's predictable. And so, therefore, and because it is present and because it is universal and it's predictable, and it can be studied, that means, it is infallible. And when you know something is infallible, then you can accept the things, especially that you can't change.
Which is different than thinking, oh, I'm just crazy, or
Yes.
that I'm out of the order, that
Yes.
I'm
Or,
disordered.
yes. Or why
Yeah.
me? Why
Why
is
me?
this happening to me? You
Hmm.
know, almost 8 billion people in the world are asking the same question at the same time. Why me?
Right. Right. So this is making me think of Puja Swamiji talking about Ishvara as the ultimate therapist.
Yeah.
Um, I suppose we should, if you don't mind, also just describing what Ishvara is, Swaminiji.
Yeah. We have, I don't like to use uh, the word God because it is overused and it has been
Okay.
pushed. Various versions of the word God have been pushed, to, down the throats of people with a stick called
Mm-hmm.
religion, a stick called punishment, all these things. So we have a word which is kind of neutral. So we use the word Ishvara. Ish means to reign, the overlord, the protector, the nurturer of all, and Vara means always. So Ishvara. So Ishvara is the super therapist. Uh, our guru used to say Ishvara is the not only the super therapist, but Vedanta is super therapy. Ishvara is the super therapist. He would say that. Yes. So you want me to talk about why?
Yeah, if you, I think you were pointing out some of that with the order. But
Yeah, yeah.
if
So in regular empirical therapy, you know what
Mhm,
happens
mhm.
is that it all goes back to the parents. You see, the primary caregivers. You know,
Right.
given these kinds of parents, of course, you would have to do this, and it's a
Mhm,
little bit
mhm.
of a tunnel vision. Because that's how it is. Like it's like a person who goes around says, "This is all because of my horoscope," and
Yeah.
this is all because the Saturn is in the wrong place. That's why I don't have any opportunities in life, and my
Mhm,
Rahu is in the wrong place. That's why I
mhm.
have so much bad luck. So it's like a tunnel vision, and in this funneled vision the person is forgetting, yes, Rahu is there, but who told you that that's the ultimate? Why do you have
Mhm.
free will? And how come you don't see that? So that's what it is. There is a tunnel vision. And the psychotherapy also, because the human being is kind of a what's the word for it, likes to kind of an obsessive personality, generally speaking.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
the person latches on to say, oh, I had bad parents and this is what it is, and
Yeah.
I had difficult childhood, that's why it is, and my sibling took away my toys at age 3, that's why I am like this. But then that's not, that may be an explanation, but that's not an excuse. You see what I'm saying? And so
Mhm,
here
mhm.
in psychotherapy, sometimes what happens is that there is a difficulty in seeing beyond, at least in the traditional
Right.
psychotherapy.
Yeah.
Now, I think psychotherapy is also widening to
Mhm.
keep in mind people's spiritual beliefs and kind of take them there, because we have a lot of very, what should I say, wonderful therapists. There was a
Yeah.
conference I attended recently on Hinduism and psychotherapy. Did you know about that?
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, I'll send
Uh,
you some information about it.
okay, that would be great.
So there I was very pleasantly surprised and very happy to see that the people who attended this conference, they were all
Mhm,
psychotherapists other than myself. And
mhm.
they were all saying how much how much the field itself has expanded, and how these
Yeah.
people who are on the cutting edge of their careers and professions, they encourage people to bring an icon to the therapy,
Mm.
or a photograph, or of anything that they worship, or something from their altar. And so they make it much more, much more all rounded. But traditional psychotherapy would stop. They wouldn't have any more explanation other than the parents or the background. Okay.
Right.
This was because there is, especially in the West, this is because there was always a feeling like, okay, we shouldn't bring in religion, we should just have a secular therapeutic session, and then that's
Mhm.
but the sad part about that was that, especially if you're talking about Hinduism, the person is first a devotee and then a son or a daughter, a mother or a father or a spouse. So that, because the religion is just sits differently, because it's not an organized religion, it is gained by osmosis. And so therefore, there is the person coming to therapy is already feeling alienated from the source of the universe. And so here, if all the explanation goes and centers around one's background, then one is not able to go beyond that. And then at the same time, because one is born or raised in the Hindu culture and the Hindu tradition, it doesn't sit right and sit quietly along with statements such as Matra Devo Bhava, Pitra Devo Bhava. May you be
Yeah.
the one for whom mother is an incarnation of
Mm.
God. May you be the one
Mm.
to unto whom the Father is an incarnation of God. Well, they are not God, they are behaving in really odd. Okay, but still but still there is that the heart doesn't sit very well with keeping on blaming only the caregivers or only one's background all the time. So therefore,
Mm.
there is a little bit of a disharmony, a dissonance. And so
Yeah.
therefore, what Vedanta does is that it takes it to another level. It looks
Mhm.
at,
Mm.
it looks at the fact that it looks at the what you said about acceptance. It looks at the law, and then it talks about how the law is inevitable.
Mm.
And here we are talking of the law of karma. Whose karma? One's own karma. It's not the karma of the neighbor that I'm having to expend or exhaust. It's my own karma, done either in this life or in previous lives, doesn't matter. And here again, this is a wonderful therapeutic tool to think about life after life after life. And
Mm.
those
Mm.
traditions where
Mm.
you just get one shot, this is just one life,
Yeah.
and it is difficult. But here we
Right.
have a long, duration to come to terms with one's own omissions and commissions and desires and growth, emotional
Mhm.
growth, spiritual growth. And so here, if one says, okay, this is inevitable because this is karma. So I
Mhm.
have a choice. I have a choice to rave, to rant, to struggle, and to keep on, banging my head against the wall that is called karma. Or
Mm.
I have a chance to use the karma for my own spiritual growth through what is
Mhm.
called karma yoga, through becoming a devotee, through transcending my past. And how to transcend the past? Lay it at the feet of Ishvara. That is how to make a
Mhm.
repast of the past. And so you lay it at the feet of whatever way in which you invoke the Lord, the Goddess, anything. And you
Mhm.
place it at the altar. You ask for help. You ask for help to overcome difficult emotions. And then in the Hindu iconography, we have, whether we talk about North India or South India, all
Yeah.
the manifestations of the goddess and God are all smiling.
Mhm.
So, and then they are giving this, which is called Abhaya Mudra, which in
Yeah.
English means don't fear, I am here. Okay, so this is Abhaya Mudra. And so they are all smiling and offering
Mm.
you solace right there. And then the beauty of the tradition is that this altar can be used to grow. And then we have in the tradition stories of saints who kicked the Shivalinga out of anger. But
Mhm.
still, Shiva said, oh, this is my true devotee. There is a story there, I forgot the name, but there was a story of a saint in eastern India, in
Yeah.
medieval India. And he was seen as mad. Nobody recognized him as a saint. And then he lived in the abandoned premise of a Shiva temple, which nobody was praying to, and it had just gone into disuse. Then
Mhm.
the city expanded, and suddenly the temple was rediscovered, and people got very excited. Somebody came and cleaned all the underbrush. Somebody repaired the doors, and somebody, gave it a nice paint and repaired all the things that were falling apart. And then they said they
Mhm.
will have a nice reconsecration of this temple. And then some priests were appointed, and then this man was hanging around there, And then they were aghast to see that he would go into the sanctum every day. The workers and the priests were aghast because he would go, he would have his own way of worshipping. So he would say, "Hey, you, you are crazy." He would tell the Lord. She would tell Shiva, "You are crazy. You know that? You want a bath here?" And he would spit on the Shivalinga, and then he would say, "Oh, then now you want me to wipe you?" And then he would take some dirt from the earth, and then rub it on that. And then he would kick the Shivalinga and then go out. And then kick not the Shivalinga, but the pedestal on which it stood.
Right.
And then he would leave. He said, "Okay, I'm done with my puja, worship." and and the priest was aghast, and they caught him, they blindfolded him, and put him in another part of the town. And he, because they thought he was mad and he was desecrating the temple. And when the story goes that when the appointed day came to open the temple, the doors would not open. And the priest sat there in meditation to find out what omissions must have been done on the day of consecration. And immediately he understood that that man must be brought, unless he is present, the doors would not open. And lo and behold, that man was caught and brought back. And as soon as he came, he started to yell, even before coming, "Hey, you," and all kinds of four-letter words, "You, Shiva," and you want your bath. And then immediately the doors opened, and he was the first one to worship the
Wow.
Shivalinga. And,
Yeah.
so that is how it is. So in our tradition, this is not blasphemy. This is a form of worship. Even the Sri Rudram, the holiest of chants, it's got a lot of therapy in it, lot of psychotherapy in it. And there, you can call the Lord, "You miserable one." And what are you blind? Why are you giving me so much punishment? What have I done to you? And take away all these difficult karmas, because otherwise I'm not even going to look at you. These are the things that you say to the Lord. And in a way that it makes the relationship real. You see? It makes it real. And then when it becomes real, then you all the projections and the transference that you have, you put it on the goddess, you put it on the Lord, you put it on Hanuman, any form, any kind
Yeah.
of what we call Ishta Devata, any kind of a desirable manifestation, a relatable manifestation, and then one finds oneself cleansed of those feelings. And so, therefore, because it makes one accept the inevitable, devotion and surrender, which Vedanta teaches. That's why Vedanta is super therapy. And that's why Ishvara, Guru, Ishvara are super therapists, because they don't talk back, but yet they help you transform completely to accept that which one cannot change. So you go beyond the parents, which is like a tunnel vision,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's not like a funnel anymore. You open it up to see that there is, that this is a vast order. And when you see that, you can't but fall in love with it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it seems like if a psychotherapist is working with someone who is coming from a Hindu background, that these are very important concepts to understand, of karma,
Yes.
bringing in the concept of relating to a devata,
Yes. Yes.
bringing in and also not villainizing parents, right? That is not it goes against the culture.
Um, yeah, it's not so much that it goes against the culture, but it's in the sense of it's better to talk about the background rather than just the parents. That's much better, because there's already a little bit of a space. And then it's better to talk about how it's better to gently steer the person to think, or to see how one found was oneself in this situation. What is, what perhaps is something that has happened that has given you this parentage? Why do you have this background? And the answer to that is much broader than just two people in
Yeah.
one's life, or one's siblings, or relatives. Yeah.
It opens it up to
Yes.
just being, yeah,
Yes.
that's helpful. And Swamiji, how you're talking about relating to an Ishtadevata, relating to this particular form or manifestation of the Lord.
Yeah.
Um, what's this is making me think of in Jungian psychotherapy, they do something called active imagination,
Yeah.
and you can talk to the Lord, or you can talk to whoever it might be, and then they'll connect back to you.
Right.
How do we how does the the person who's relating to the Lord, how do they make it more real, um, going beyond just the sort of following the rules of puja, for example?
Yeah, this is such a beautiful question you have asked. I mean, very, very deep. I'm so happy you asked that. I will answer by relating to you a story that happened right in front of me. When I was traveling with our guru one time, with Swami Dayananda ji, I had the opportunity of being in a place in Rajasthan, in Jaipur.
Mhm.
And there he was there for 10 days. And this couple would come and listen to the uh, teachings. Every morning, every evening, they would be there. And then one day, I think around the fourth or fifth day, they said they wanted to meet Pujya Swamiji. And I said, yes, please come. And I wrote down their names and I said, okay, this is the place he will be. He has this suite in the hotel. Come. And there is informal talks there, so you can sit and listen. So they came every day, but then she kept saying, I would like to bring my little one. I would like to bring my little one. And I said, please do. And then, but every day she would not bring him. She said she has a small boy and she would not bring him. So then on the last day, she said, I'm going to bring him. So then finally, and Pujya Swamiji was also in a rush because there were so many people. I said, did you bring your child? She said, he's asleep in the next room. I will bring it to him. And then I made everything ready for Pujya Swamiji ji to receive them and everything. And then they both came, but there was no child. She held a small box, no bigger than this bigger box.
Mhm,
She
mhm,
brought the box and then she said, carefully, very, very carefully, she opened the lid and there was a small baby Krishna she had made lie down. And so
mhm,
she took a tiny fan and fanned him. And then she said, Lalla, which means baby Krishna, please wake up. The Guru is here and I want you to greet him and I want you to meet him. And then she very reverentially gave it to Swamiji. And Swamiji just looked at it and, blessed this
yeah.
Krishna for her and then, gave her prasad and then looked at the husband a little quizzically. And that's when the whole story came out. Their child had died a
Mhm,
year ago, not even a year ago, in a terrible, horrible drowning accident,
mhm,
which nobody could have imagined. And then, so she was, beside herself with grief. She, in fact, was going mad until she found this baby Krishna. I mean, she already had him on the altar. But then one day she told him, she herself related this, she narrated this, you are now going to be my child. You are going to be my son. And then she worshipped him just like that, very, very tenderly, changing his clothes, making sure that he had enough to eat, whatever it was, and everything. And then this is how she was. She was not mad. She knew this was not
mhm,
really her son. She knew that she was using this surrogate baby to, in the form of the Lord, to overcome her grief. So her eyes were filled, her tears were flowing down her cheeks. And then she said, this is my story. And Pujya Swamiji just caught hold of her hands and said, if this is how you worship, freedom, liberation, enlightenment is guaranteed to you.
mhm.
That's what he said. So this is how, well, the relationship has to be made real.
Yeah.
So we have an altar, we clean it every day, we put fresh flowers. If one wants, one can be
Mhm,
as
mhm,
parsimonious and Spartan about the altar, or one can go the whole hog. And So you can put a little bit minimum. You put a little water, offer a little water and some dried fruits or nuts, a little bit every day. And then one day you're in a rush, you go away without offering. When you start to feel guilty, oh, I haven't attended, I don't know what happened to me, that means the relationship has become real. You see, even with the therapist, when you start to trust and when the transference takes place, then only therapy starts to work in a way. And so, here also, that trust, that relationship has to be built for that altar to yield some results. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So making it real, and
Yeah.
it is a real
Yeah. And
relationship.
that's, yes, that's why we have 9 forms of devotion. There is the devotion of the mother to the child, and the such a devotee enjoys mothering the child, and then there is some kind of a feeling of entitlement. You are my child, I am your mother. There is the kind of devotion bhakti Mirabai had towards Lord Krishna, the bhakti of a consort, and that is also a kind of a bhakti. Then you can say the Lord is my brother, the goddess is my sister, or you can say Shiva and Parvati, you are my parents. That is also there. Tvameva mata cha pita tvameva. You are my father, you are my mother. So there are different forms of bhakti. So you can the relationship is given a name, and it has a form. You can never relate to the formless. The truth of this Ishta Devata is formless, definitely. And the truth of you is also formless. But one is not there yet. One is getting ready to go there. And so, in the meantime, this relationship has to be made strong and it has to be made real. So that this way, catching hold of this relationship, one is able to let go of the things in the Jagat, in the universe, that attract, that are finite, and that is, those that goes leads you nowhere. Every dead end that you follow leaves you deadened inside. And so, therefore, the need to catch hold of that which is permanent, which is nitya, eternal, which is not subject to change, which is not afflicted by all the things that one finds afflicted by. So, in that which is infallible, we discover Ishvara. We don't say Ishvara is infallible because that's a subjective statement. And that can be true only until Ishvara is fulfilling my desires. And the day Ishvara does not fulfill my desires, you are not infallible. So we have to switch the statement around. That which is infallible is Bhagavan, is Ishvara. So the inevitable and the infallible, in that I learn to see the truth of that which I worship on my altar. And that itself is extremely transformative and leads to emotional growth.
It seems like that relationship gives a lot of strength, knowing
Yes.
that you have that relationship with the infallible.
Yes.
That will help you go through all the difficulties of life. And
Absolutely. Guruna api dukkhena na vichalyate. Even by difficult circumstances and challenges, one is not perturbed, the Bhagavad Gita says. And the Taittiriya Upanishad says, Na bibheti kadachaneti. The devotee is not afraid because one has the limited, has given up the limitations and then recognized oneself as limitless, at least for the time of that interaction.
So many, I've met some devotees who will talk about like speaking to Krishna and Krishna speaking back to them. Is there any role of that in, like, I wonder if you can speak to that. Do we consider that to be an authentic experience in Vedanta?
Not, every experience is authentic because you have it. You are the one that is ratifying it. You are the one that is observing it, correct? So that which is observed, it has a certain validity. So if Krishna talks back, that's wonderful. If Krishna talks to you, why not? It is a way in which the answers that come from your own the depths of your own heart, in the sense, and that you are ascribing to or feeling divinely guided. That's not a bad thing. That's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
That's your own, inner voice. That's Sakshi. That Sakshi is Bhagavan. So that's Sakshi, the observer, the witness, observes a few
Mm,
things, and then the answer comes. The
mm,
answer comes, okay, this is not the correct way to do it. Do it this way. So that answer from the heart, if you say this is coming from Lord Krishna, it's a wonderful thing, because then you
mm.
won't have the hubris.
Right.
Yeah.
So and it makes the relationship more real also, I'm sure.
Yes. Yes. Definitely.
Mm, mm. One last question that I have is about, um, we were talking about the role of psychotherapy for a Vedanta student, but I'm wondering about the opposite of, like, what do you feel like the benefit of studying Vedanta might be for a psychotherapist?
Oh, that will be wonderful. That combination would be just wonderful. We have that in you. So that's wonderful. Yeah. That will make someone very, very invincible where the knowledge is concerned. Because you see, the two are extremely compatible, because psychotherapy deals with at the level of the empirical, the mind, the order of the mind, etc. And then Vedanta deals with the transcendental, with the absolute. And so the problem in the study of Vedanta is to be able to bridge these two worlds, the empirical and the absolute. It's fine to say absolutely I am free of fear, pain, and sorrow, until I turn the corner and meet somebody I don't like or somebody I'm afraid of.
Mhm,
Then all the feelings come. So how does one take this knowledge, which is, solidly given by these generations and generations of gurus in this lineage, in this teaching tradition, an unbroken lineage? How do we take this precious knowledge, and
mhm,
then how do we walk the earth? And so the psychotherapy and the study of Vedanta for a psychotherapist, and the other way around also,
mhm,
study of understanding how the mind works for somebody who is interested in Vedanta, is a fantastic combination. It's very synergetic, because it bridges these two worlds, the relative and the absolute. And so, otherwise, if somebody might study Vedanta, and it is very easy to study, meaning not fully assimilate it, but somehow
mhm,
at least get to know some of the Upanishads and their message, and understand it a little bit. It's very easy to dismiss the feelings and everything, and then say, I'm already there. It's a
mhm,
hubris. I don't need this. I'm already there. Because, all this is for lowly mortals, and I don't need this at all.
mhm.
But that would
Right.
be fooling oneself. Yeah. So therefore, but then if you're just into psychotherapy, then one gets bogged down by the mind and bogged down by the past. So a healthy, attitude towards the mind, and then and that psychotherapy informs Vedanta,
Mhm,
that is just very, very healthy. And then on the other side also, if one has studied psychotherapy, Vedanta informs psychotherapy and takes it to a different level. And I think that, the self ignorance and the mistaken sense of one's identity as a finite, trapped being, victimized being, has to be
mhm,
dealt with and attacked on many, many different levels. And the
mhm,
more the
mhm,
merrier. And so this way, this is a wonderful combination which helps one to grow and take one's growth in strides.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
It seems like also the orientation is different. Of If you have Vedanta, you see the person as whole,
Yeah.
instead of disordered, and
That's
you're
a,
so that starting point is very different.
yeah, that's a wonderful point you brought up. That's a great point. You see the person as whole, you see the person as unfettered, and then you see them as having an experience. You see them as a whole person having an empirical experience rather than getting bogged down under it. So, and that's why even in the Bhagavad Gita, when the teaching starts, Lord Krishna is slightly smiling. And if we look at the manifestation of God, Ishvara, in the form of the teacher, Lord Dakshinamurti is also slightly smiling. That slightly smiling shows that one has the ability to not take the problem so seriously and identify with the client or the patient's problems, so that one forgets the larger picture.
Well, thank you so much, Somaniji. This has been absolutely, an excellent
I hope,
conversation,
yeah,
and I
I hope it was
learned so much.
I hope it was helpful. I'm happy to talk to you anytime.
I appreciate it so much. It's been, very helpful. I think there's a lot of nuances that we brought out of what is the role of psychotherapy and what is the role of Vedanta.
Yes, yes.
Hmm.
And you want to write it up, or what are you planning to do with it?
So planning to publish it as a podcast for right now, and then most likely write it up as well.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah. So
Yes,
I'll
yeah,
share
go.
with Swaminiji when it's.
Yes, yes, please do. I'd be very happy to, get that. And I wish you great prosperity, and may you make great strides in your career and in your life.
Thank you so much, Ji.
Namaste, Shivam.
And thank you for the blessings on Guru Purnima Day
It's
as well.
wonderful, wonderful. Take care.
Yeah.
Be well.
Thank you. Pranams.
Om Tat
Oh.
Sat.